Hello, this is Sarah and I'm the host. So I'll have my video screen off, but I'll be hearing you and, changing participants into panelists and setting up cart and that kind of stuff. Hi.
Hi. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm doing good. Yourself?
Good. I'm Arius. I'm the board member and moderator for this session.
And nice to formally meet you, Arius. I was in the peer support group yesterday, so I got to hear you talk.
Yeah. Do I sound okay? Because yesterday I was having trouble with my mic. So.
No, perfect. Clear now.
Are you presenting this whole?
No, I'm just the tech host. So
okay.
I will just be like moving people around when they need to talk.
Okay. Are we still waiting on the presenters?
We are, but people are coming in quickly. And I think that was the presenter just now, Katrina.
She's still connecting. Hi, Katrina. Hi, Alicia.
Good morning.
Good morning, Alicia. I saw that Katrina said hi, but we didn't actually hear you.
You're still muted.
There we go.
Perfect.
Now.
Do you guys have any slides or anything for this presentation?
Yes.
Okay. And then, forgive me, I'm reading off of the little script here to make sure. Okay. So if you have slides, we'll have to make sure that, well, we have card and caption, but you still might want to audio describe the slides too, just in case.
Yeah, I'm going to read them.
Okay.
Would you like to be controlling your own slides or have someone else control them?
I would like to control my own.
I'm going to make you a co-host just to avoid potential tech issues that come up.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
And then remember that we're going to, are you the only one presenting?
Yes.
Okay, then I don't have to worry about it then. And then we can take some time for a Q&A. So just let me, how far into the presentation do you want to take some time? Do you want to just get a 15 or a 5 close to the end? Do you have an ask or?
Well, I have a slide in there that says questions on it. It's near the end.
Okay.
The slide.
Okay. Perfect.
And I'm going to be asking questions to the audience throughout my presentation.
So. Okay. Would you rather me I can just watch the chat and Q&A and let you. I'll privately message you to let you know if we have a question. If you want to do it that way.
Okay. And I will ask, because what I'm doing it is on interviews, and I'm going to ask the audience different interview questions.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just kind of watch the chat for discussion. Then I won't really do too much with the Q&A since you doing this presentations on interviews.
Okay. So if I ask a question, one of my interview questions that I want to ask, will people be able to respond through the chat that way, or?
They will, but we want them to put it into the Q&A because it could get lost into the chat. So.
Okay, and the Q&A, I see that. Okay.
Yep. So what I'll do is if we have, let's say we have like 5 questions, then I'll kind of like interrupt you and say we have some questions in the Q&A, and then I can read the questions to you and then tap the little answer live button, and then as you answer it live or whatever, I can mark it, or we can say you'll type the answer in. It just depends.
Okay. So should I type the questions in the Q&A or just read them out? Then they can answer.
No, you can read your questions out, but if anybody else has questions, like the participants,
yeah, they'll do it in the Q&A.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to a few sessions already, so that's
Okay,
done it.
and then basically if I'm not well, I'll turn my camera off and I'll just be on mute. And then we also want to make sure that, hi interpreter, and I'll try to speak slowly enough for the interpreter as well, because when I get nervous, I start rambling.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
And
you
then,
guys got it really under control, so I'm just gonna turn my camera off, but I'm here. So if you need me, I'll be listening for any tech issues.
okay, Sarah,
Thank
I'll
you.
probably be private. I'll probably be privately messaging you through the chat throughout the.
Sounds
And,
great.
and then if there's any lull, Katrina, I'll probably just step in and just try to make sure we don't have too much dead air.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, you guys, we still have 8 minutes. So if you're coming in, just drop hello where you're from into the chat. We should be getting started about 9.
Or that's 12 Eastern time.
Right. It's early for me.
Yeah, it's about noon where I live right now.
Oh man, I wish it was known here. Let me see.
Can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, your lighting's a little dark, but it's not enough to obstruct the presentation.
Okay.
Hi everyone, we'll be starting in about 6 minutes now. If you're in the room, just drop where you're from, and we will get started at 9 o'clock Pacific time, 12 o'clock Eastern. Yes, everything is okay here.
Oh, was that Mary?
Yeah.
There is one thing I would like a little tech help on. I noticed on the phone, I'm viewing the Zoom on my phone as a user, and there I'm only seeing the speaker. So when like myself or Arias talks and our videos are off, I'm just seeing the black screen. And so this happened to us on Monday, and I know that there was an easy fix, but just on the back end. So I just want to make sure that Mary knows it. Oh, and I got it. Okay, so she's good. We're gonna be all set.
I wonder if I should do that as well, because we had some trouble yesterday. But Everybody said they can hear me okay, right? My voice sounds regular, it doesn't sound robotic. And
Sounds great.
Yes.
do we have any more people coming in?
As to speak, no.
Shit, so, oh, here we go. Hi, everyone in the chat. In the chat right now, we have 19 people. We will get started in about 4 minutes. Please drop where you are from. If you want to make it interesting, we can. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. If you want to make it interesting, I guess we can say this is interviews, getting the jitters out. 3 minutes and counting. So I hope you're ready.
Hey, is anyone from Disability Link in Tucker, Georgia on the chat?
I don't see it.
Okay. Maybe they're waiting till right at noon.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I work at, and I'm at home right now, so I can't. I think they were all gonna get together in the room to see this.
Oh man, I don't know how you can do it. I have to be at the office. 1 minute and counting, you guys. If you're still coming in, just drop where you are from in the chat. And in the chat, are you guys enjoying the conference so far? That's great. That is great. I am. This is all new to me, as it is to everyone. This is interesting, but it's great. All righty then. One minute and counting. I know, right, Renee? Oh, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Marius Franklin. I'm the board member and facilitator of the call today. Thank you for joining us for this workshop. Interviews, getting the jitters out. I'll be the room moderator. I want to mention a few housekeeping things right now while I'm on. Before we get started, first, when you scroll over the menus, the screen, a menu bar pops up. So depending on the device you're on, it's either at the top or the bottom. This is where you will find the closed captioning, which is the CC tab on the menu bar. Stream text is also available for today's calls. You can find that in the conference website connection instructions for this session. For sign language interpreting, you can find the interpreter on the screen. To join into the chat, please find the word bubble in that same menu bar. Once that is selected, that will allow you to follow along with the chat or add in your comments. For Q&A times, please note the Q&A boxes on the menu bar. Please only submit questions there as they may get lost in the chat. To ask a question or a comment, you can also select the hand option on the menu that allows us to know you have a question. For those of you on the phone today or using keystrokes, we ask that you press *9 on your keypad to raise your hand. We will then let you know when to unmute you. Remember, if you join into the conversation, please keep all background noise down as much as possible to allow us to hear you clearly. And I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to Katrina. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Katrina Parsons, and I am an employment specialist and an independent care waiver program case manager that's won the home and community-based waiver services at Disability Link in Tucker, Georgia, which is in Metro Atlanta. This is my 4th time attending the ABLE conference, but my first time presenting. And I'm going to present on interviews because you can mark this in the chat or in the Q&A. How many of you have jitters before you go on job interviews? Okay. Well, the news is I do too, and even the most seasoned of professionals have jitters before they go on job interviews. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how to relieve some of those jitters we have. So we are going to talk about settings first. So I sometimes help my consumers prepare for interviews on one-on-one settings where they come into the office and we practice questions there. And we also do it in a group. I lead a job readiness class at 10 o'clock every Tuesday morning for about an hour and a half. And this typically goes through resumes and how to work career fairs. We also have a job fair coming up at the end of the month in honor of disabilities or employment for people with disabilities awareness month. And right now we're working on getting our consumers ready for that. And we also have topics such as knowing your rights as a person with a disability in the workplace and accommodations and time management on the job search and lots more. So when we go over through our interview topics, that's one topic we cycle through every few months because I feel like it's very important for consumers to get confident on interviews, their confidence up so they can do well on interviews. And so therefore we typically have a group setting. So we have typically 2 interviewers as like a panel interview and 1 interviewee, which is the consumer, and they kind of play mock roles throughout the class. And then the rest of the class is typically observers to see what went wrong. The interviewee did well in the interview and what they could do better. And we sometimes do mock interviews over the phone if a consumer gets a call for an interview tomorrow, let's say, and they don't have time to come into our office, or we don't have time in our schedules to fit them in to practice an interview on the spot. Sometimes we'll have a practice over the phone. And also, there are video conference interviews where, especially right now with COVID, a lot of jobs are working from home, or a lot of interviews might be virtual. So we also want to prepare them for that. And preparation, we want to help consumers get their transportation set up and ready to go so that they're at the interview site 15 minutes early if it is an in-person interview. So whether that means they called their paratransit to set that up. I know in my city in Atlanta, you have to call the paratransit system at least 24 hours to get that set up so it can make sure and drops them off at the same time. They can, or if they're taking just the regular public transportation system, so they can have the bus routes and train routes scheduled, practice using that so that they know the amount of time it takes for them to get from their home to the interview site. And they might want to do some reviews, and they also, if they're going to be driving there, having somebody drive them there, or if there is any, if it's a big building and they I'll probably have that already for the application or in order to get the interview. Bring some copies of their resumes to the interviewers, and they might want to.
Hi, this is Sarah Ann. I think we just lost our presenter for a moment, and I believe she'll just be logging in, but we kind of heard the internet going there, so I think the internet has been the issue. Worst case, she can call back in by phone, and we'll continue the session just audio. So bear with us just a minute so she can get logged back in.
This is areas to remember to drop your questions in the chat as well, so that when she does get back on, we have a whole bunch of questions for her to answer. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation.
Well, and I'll take a quick moment to thank Marcella and our captioner as well today. I think it's Alicia for doing a lot of hard work to keep our presentation accessible. So thank you so much. And it looks like Katrina is back. And Katrina, this is Sarah Ann. Just in case you can hear me, if your internet continues to struggle, feel free just to call in and continue via your phone. I know we missed the slideshow, but just in case.
Okay.
Katrina, you're on mute. I think we lost her again. Nope. Bear with us. Having some technical difficulties, but we'll get through it. Thank you all. Thank you, interpreter. I know it's got to be confusing right now. If you have any questions, drop them into the chat. Katrina, remember, you can always call in by phone if your internet's choppy. And Don't forget to fill out our evaluation form for this session. It's Getting the Jitters Out Interviews. We would greatly appreciate that. Uh, bear with us. It's Zoom. What can you say? You're either in or out.
I know we're all learning to adapt to the new environment. I like to compare it though, in a real conference, you always had to deal with people like giving each other the microphones and normally have to disconnect them from themselves. So this is just our new electronic way of having to navigate that. I do see in the chat that Barry has went ahead and posted the PDF of the slideshow. So that way you can view that as we go.
And then Katrina, why don't you go ahead and turn your camera off, just so that you're on mute, Katrina.
Yeah, so turn my camera off. I think it's off.
Okay, we just trying to figure out a way that it's not so choppy for you. And then we're having everybody click the link in the chat, the PDF, to get the slides if need be.
Okay.
But you can go ahead and continue with your presentation.
Okay.
And if you let me know which slide you are on, I'm able to screen share that PDF so the audience can follow along.
Okay. Let me get back to that then. So should I okay. Okay. So I'm on, okay. Okay. So I think I was on the preparation slide.
Do you happen to know the number?
I think.
Oh, this one for virtual.
I think it's before that. Preparation, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes. Okay. So everybody, this is kind of an example of what you don't want to would like not to happen during an interview. So what I was saying earlier is, so they should make sure to look over their job description and make sure that they use those key words, and that was in the job description in their interview, just like they would on a resume or a cover letter. You want to make sure that they're also in the interview, and so that they can show that they're ready to present these tasks for if they get the job. So if they want to, and also they want to make sure their appearance is nice and professional. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And they want to confirm with the interviewer the day before, whether they if they don't have the information of the person they don't have the information, the hiring manager, they can call the organization that they're interviewing with and ask if they can get the contact information for whoever will be interviewing them. And then for the virtual interview preparation, you want to make sure the lighting is centered, and you want to check your microphone and webcam ahead of time. And you want to practice speaking into the camera. And you want to make sure they pick a nice, quiet, and distraction-free place, away from cameras and away so that pets don't come in, or so that other family members don't intervene. And then you want to make sure they check the microphone and the webcam ahead of time to make sure it's working. And you want to help them make sure that they practice speaking into the camera so everybody can hear them. Okay, next slide. Okay. So the technology etiquette during COVID-19, especially because COVID-19 is going to be around for a while, and a lot of these, like I said earlier, are going to be virtual interviews. You want to make sure they become familiar with the platform ahead of time, such as Microsoft Teams, Zoom, etc. I know typically at my center we use Zoom and Microsoft Teams. We're using Zoom for our bigger classes and Microsoft Teams for our just one-on-one discussions right now with consumers. But I know some people use Google Hangouts or Slack or Skype for Business or something else that they use for their video platforms, and the interviewers might prefer to use those platforms. So you want to make sure the consumers become familiar with those platforms ahead of time and do a practice run. I mean, I would say that you can have the consumers ask whoever their independent living specialist is if they can do a trial run with them on the video conference site. And you want to select the do not disturb sign on your platform so that you won't get a ton of just in the chat box there. You don't get distracted by whatever's in the chat box, so that you can focus on speaking to the interviewer. And you want to make sure that they don't stare at their square too much, because if you stare, then it can be tempting to want to see how you look in their square. But at the same time, you don't want to make, okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
This is Sarah Ann. I can still hear you.
Okay. Okay. So also you want to make sure that the consumers aren't staring at their own individual squares too much, so they can focus on the presentation with what their interviewers are saying. And you want to make sure they're in professional dress entirely, not just from the top up. So I know that even before COVID happened, I would have some friends who were doing interviews through Skype and mentioned that, oh, because it's a video interview, I just have to have my top part showing professionalism, but I can still wear pajama bottoms or whatnot. But sometimes that the interviewer can ask for you to stand up and see the full picture of what you're wearing. So you still want to make sure you are in professional dress on both the top and on the bottom. And so introductions, and you want to have them come in professional dress if they're coming in person, or if they are you are practicing with them through Microsoft Teams or Zoom or some other video platform, that they are in their professional dress so that they can practice for what they're going to wear on the day of the interview. And you want to have them knock on the door of your office as they would for their interviewer. And pre and post COVID, you would want to have them give a firm handshake and practice that firm handshake with them. But right now, I think it's typically a elbow bump that's taking place of that firm handshake. And as well, if the interviewer might, even with the COVID guidelines, the interviewer might reach out to them and want to give them a handshake. You know, unless they're absolutely not comfortable with that due to COVID, you would tell them to still reach out their hand then and give them that firm handshake if the interviewer offers it. And you would want to make sure that they have eye contact with their interviewer. Okay, slide. And also, what I was going to say too is, especially for the virtual interviews, you want to make sure they're not, if they're fidgeting with something, or I know I sometimes like to have a pen in my hand, especially to calm nerves or that they might have. You want to make sure that they can still, that it's not disrupting their concentration too much, so they can still concentrate on the interviewer, and that the interviewer is not seeing too much, so that they are fidgeting with something. And oh, go back up, please. Okay. So now we're going to go over some interview questions, and I'm going to ask these to the crowd, and if you have an answer, please post it in the Q&A or in the chat box, whatever is easier. So the first question is that question that we all hate at the beginning of our interviews. Tell me a little bit about yourself. So if you have an answer, please post it in the chat. How you would answer that question. Yes. Okay, so I see we have a couple of answers, and these are good answers, but you want to kind of expand on it a little bit to show the interviewer what brought you to wanting to apply for that job. So you kind of want to share a little bit of your educational background and your work experience or volunteer experience or whatever it might be that the consumer has. And they want to briefly just show off the skills and how their background has prepared them for the position that they are applying for. It's kind of like the elevator speech that they would say when they got up to the recruiter at job fairs. And then, how did you hear about the position? Okay. Any other answers? Okay. So what I'm seeing on the chat, so I can read it so it's accessible for everybody to see, is some people are saying a job website, some people are saying through a person at the company, some people are saying through a friend of mine or through a newspaper or through idealist.org. But one answer that I think the best answer out of all of these right now is the one that Brandy is saying. That's saying, I found it during a job search online and it really got my interest. And I think you should really expand on that by what specifically caught your interest about this position. Or because we all go on Indeed or Monster or Idealist or something like that and browse through hundreds of jobs that we can apply to at once. But what specifically about this position caught your eye? Especially if you just heard this by word of mouth from a friend by this position that was open. You know, your friend probably told you about maybe a few other job positions that were open that they heard of. So what specifically wanted to make you apply to this? And also, if you have a friend, if you heard about this through a friend or another connection, you want to name that person, because sometimes the name of the people can really get you the job. And why are you interested in this position? So type your answer to that question. Why are you interested in this position? Yes. So some of the answers that we have are a job. Alyssa put a job. The job description was like reading a bio of myself. Sarah Ann put, I really want a career path that makes a positive difference, and I see myself being able to accomplish that at this job. Renee put, it is a job that has always been near and dear to my heart and a passion for me. Arius put, I'm interested because I feel this could be the first step of success. And here, Brandy put, I'm interested in this position because it gives me the opportunity to work directly with individuals and use my skills and knowledge to make differences. Jamie put, you may be interested because you like this topic. Yes, and all these are great answers, really sharing why are you interested specifically in this position. And then our next question brings us to, how had your education and experience prepared you for this position? So again, a little bit like, I mean, we answer a little bit about this in a lot of interview questions, but what specifically has your education and experience that you have specifically prepared you for this position? So can we go on the next slide? Okay. Okay. So what are your strengths and weaknesses? Type that in the chat if you have an answer. Okay. So do we have any answers for this question? Okay. So somebody says, so Jamie says, you may be interested because you like this topic. Communication is a strength of mine. Listening, working with others. Sarah Ann says, strengths, no stress with technology. weakness, I tend to be too ambitious. So what we're talking about here is the strength. There is no stress with technology. That's good, because especially if consumers are going to be working from home, at least until COVID is over, you want to make sure that they have the technology skills as well as the general customer service skills or people skills that they're going to need to know for that job. Because once they're working at home, they can't see any of those technology. They're going to have to be on their own for a lot of those technology skills with nobody around the corner to be able to help them if there's a problem. And their weakness, I tend to be too ambitious. So you want to answer with, I tend to be too ambitious. You want to answer, I tend to be too ambitious, but that's kind of vague. What specifically are you ambitious with, and how are you working on that? How are you working on that skill to make it more of a strength? And here Renee says, I have to say my strengths would be I am quick and eager learner, and I truly have a passion for helping others. My weakness would have to be I'm very ambitious at times. Again, you want to put how you are, or how you're working on your ambition weakness as well, to make that more of a strength. And Sarah Ann says, nice change. So next question, where would you like to be in your career 5 years from now? So Alyssa Norman says here, I'm waiting a few seconds to see if anybody else puts anything. Sarah Ann says, my answer, I want to stay at the same organization and be a subject matter expert in my field. So for this question, you want to put, you can put you want to stay at the same place, but you want to advance and be a manager, or you want to put you might want to start out saying, a consumer that wants to be a counselor, for example, if they just came out of high school, typically they would need a bachelor's or a master's degree to be a counselor. They would need more schooling. So what they would want to do is they can maybe have their first job is to be a customer service representative, so they can get some of those people skills and some of those interpersonal skills and work on those. But maybe if they want to become a counselor to help other people with disabilities like themselves, for example, or maybe an independent living specialist at a SIL, then they could say, I hope to be a counselor at a center for, I can hope to be a counselor, and that I hope to have my bachelor's degree then, or my master's degree by then, or something like that. Oh, we also have from Brandy, I hope to be working on an organization in which I will be able to grow. Arius puts, 5 years from now, I want to be on my way to becoming an executive director at my SIL. Lynn says, hopefully working for you until the wheels fall off. And Katie says, I will like to grow with the organization and increase my blank skills. And Arius puts, of a SIL. So that too shows that you want to move up and not that you have greater ambitions than you just want to stay at the same place you are for a while. So now the next question, what is your greatest professional achievement? So who can answer that question? So Sarah Ann says, Judy Human spoke at an event I organized, one of the best moments of my life. Stacy N puts, amazing how certain verbiage can work. The deaf population struggles with that because not in their way of language usage. They are more direct and to the point. That is a challenge, especially if the interviewer is not aware of that. Renee put, graduate college with honors out of being out of school for 20 years. Alyssa put, developing as a person enough to understand more fully the career I would like to spend the rest of my life working to master. Yes. So that's a great point, to just stand out for your consumers, just to stand out and brag about what their professional achievements are. You know, if somebody else where they work can kind of toot that horn in a recommendation for them or something like that, you know, they want to make sure that they want to choose something that might make them really stand out against all the other interviewees. Oh, and we have from Jamie Liu, advocacy for myself and the youth I work for, but for getting recognized by our local members of Congress. From Brandy, I noticed many of our clients did not have a driver's license, which makes it difficult to get employed. I started providing diverse education workshops to help them get their driver's license to be able to get to work. Those are all good, great professional achievements because we are all helping our consumers live the lives they want to live with and reducing the barriers for them. So next question, tell me about a time you failed. So who wants to answer that question? So someone says, when I was in grad school and I was kicked out of my internship for not being stable. Sarah Ann says, my answer, I failed to manage my illness as well as I could and have before drop out of work due to sickness. If I planned it better ahead of time, I could have avoided this. Yeah, all these are good answers. So you want to be brief about your failure, but also what have you learned from your failure? So like a lot of these talk about dropping out of school because of illnesses. You know, are you going back to school now? Are you getting more training? Are you looking at going back to school to finish your degree or certificate or whatnot? Or somebody says Will says, I got pulled into a political debate working with the consumer that ended our working relationship. Well, for example, Will can now say, I stay away from politics when talking to my consumers, so we don't have we don't end up talking about a bunch of our political differences and makes us feel uncomfortable. So, next slide, please. Questions. Tell me about a conflict you have faced and how you dealt with it. So, who wants to answer that question? So, somebody puts, or Arius puts, achievement. I was the youngest person on the Washington State Independent Living Council during my term, got on the executive committee and hired a new ED and start a youth and HALT committee, which was non-existent at the time. Failure, not speaking up or advocating, which caused to lose my housing. Yeah. So that is a very good achievement because he is the youngest person on the IL council, which is impressive. And he hired the new ED. You know, not many young people get to do that. You know, if they're the youngest person on the council, they might be the newest person on there. So that is a big achievement. And Arius also says his failure is not speaking up or advocating, which caused to lose his housing. And was at the time, not currently. So that's good because we all want to talk about advocacy here at our SILs and teach consumers how to advocate. Sarah Ann puts, I faced a conflict when a peer expected a quick payment for a task. Since I was ill, I cannot relate to his stress, and I was shorter than I mean to be. I now know to trust my coworkers when I am unwell. Yeah, so this talks about a conflict that she faced in the past, but how she is improving on that, so she doesn't face a similar conflict again. And Jamie Lou says, organizing a big group conference for my youth, but my coworkers helped me get through it and not advocating for myself. Also, again, with self-advocacy, that is very important because we want to teach our consumers about self-advocacy and help getting, and especially organizing a big conference. You know, that can be very stressful. So you want to put how you did and how you can, and how you kind of improved on it and state over time kind of how you made progress. Okay, and next slide. Oh no, up a slide, excuse me, sorry. Okay, Arius puts, I faced a conflict by learning not to be so reactive when a consumer comes in so agitated or fired up. Yes, that is very true. We all want to, although they might, because a lot of these consumers have difficulties in their lives. So we want to, and they might, you know, we are their source. Sometimes we are their only social support as independent living specialists. So we want to make sure that we are listening to them, and being supportive of them. But we want to make sure we also keep our cool during that time. And yes, they might frustrate you. Sometimes I come home, sometimes my consumers come in and are having bad days, and sometimes that does roll off on me. And sometimes I know I can't do something about it, and I want to do something about it, but I can't. Sometimes that frustrates me. Sometimes I do come home with that worry and anxiety. But it's important to know that we are doing our jobs okay and keeping our cool with it, and not to let whatever they're going through rub off on us, at least in front of them. And Renee says, in the past, I've not always advocated for myself. I just took the things as they came at me. I've learned to advocate for myself better, and I am working on it. How can I teach my consumers to advocate when I don't do it for myself? and Me Too areas. And that is something we all need to work on, because I know at the SIL I work at and a lot of other SILs that a lot of the staff have disabilities themselves and barriers that they face. So it's important that we call why we call them consumers in essence and not calling them clients is that SILs aren't medical models, but also because you still want to have professional boundaries with your consumer, but you are more their peers too, and peer supporting them through their struggles, because it might be a struggle that you have gone with or are also going through. And I know some things that I struggle with. I know some of my consumers have tips for me too on how to benefit my situation and how to go about doing something. So it's kind of also a peer support model that we have here at our SILs. So another question is, tell me a conflict you have faced in. Okay, so we answered that question. Okay, Stacy says, love your point, Renee. So many people empty their own cups for others and they miss out. Cannot take care of others, and one cannot take care of oneself. Yes, that is good, that we all need to be working also on our own situations, because we also want to be kind of role models for these consumers and tell them that if we're struggling, we're also working on these issues at the same time that they are. And also, why is there a gap in your employment? Answer that question. Okay. So Jordan says, got on SSDI. Well, got on SSDI, you want to, you don't want to, I know some people are very worried about explaining disabilities because they're worried it could disqualify them from the job. But you want to be brief about it, because everybody has had some health issues at some time or other. So you want to talk kind of, I had a stroke or something like that. But also you want to tell that you're not a lot better now and that you can do the job. And somebody says, Brandy, that there's a gap in my employment because I decided to take some time off to experience my daughter's childhood. She started kindergarten now, and I feel like it's time for me to pursue my employment goals. That is a good answer, because a lot of people take time off to raise kids. So Renee says, I decided to start a family. Sarah Ann says, I have a 5-year gap in my employment when I became suddenly ill with Addison's disease. This condition was undiagnosed. When I got the right treatment, I was able to return to work. As a young female, I don't think I get asked about my gap. It is assumed that I had a baby. So, and also it's very good, and sometimes they won't ask you about your gap in employment, and actually sometimes that makes things easier, because we got consumers that are very worried that they have had a gap in employment because they had to take time off for various things. And while we work with them to frame an answer that they can use for their gap, especially like I had a consumer a couple of weeks ago that he had about a 12-year gap in employment, and because of his, partly because of his he acquired a disability, but also I asked him in that time, so for the past 12 years you've just been managing your disability and going to doctor's appointments, that's all you've been doing? And he said, well, no, I've also been taking care of my mom and volunteering at the King Center, being a tour guide and things like that. So I also encourage them to throw things like that in there. And also, if you are, yes, I know us women sometimes do get discriminated against because we are able to get pregnant, have babies, and sometimes employers worry about that. But, you don't want to worry about that too much unless they ask you about it. So Trampy said, my disability allowed me to go back to finish my degree and learn the skills needed to become a strong employee for your organization. That is a good, especially if you are applying to an organization like a SIL or a different organization that advocates for people with disabilities. You want to be able to say you finished your own disability has allowed you that experience, so you can't take that experience into helping others with disabilities with their situations. And Darla says, right now it may be because of COVID. And that is true. If you are worried about going to work because of COVID, you might want to say, hey, because with my health conditions, I was at high risk for COVID, but now that COVID is kind of dying down, or I feel more confident now that I can manage my health conditions and I feel a little bit less stressed out and less anxious about being around other people, things like that. And that leads me to the next question. Why were you fired? Again, we want to be brief and honest. If our consumers did let go from a job for whatever reason, you want to tell them to be brief and honest about it. But also you want to help them frame what they are doing now and what they've learned from getting fired that can help them not experience the same problems in this job, whether the job is just a bad fit skill-wise for them and they learn more skills or completely switched industries, or if they had some behavior problems that went on and now they've learned to manage those better or something like that. And then, do you have any questions for me? We are going to go on to the next slide about questions that our consumers can ask the employers.
Katrina?
Yes.
This is Arius. Just to let you know, we have 7 minutes left.
Okay.
And we have one person with a hand raised. I can't see who it is. And we also have 2 people on the phone. So I can't see who has their hand raised.
Okay.
Just to let you know.
Yeah, I can't see who has their hand raised either.
I have control of that. This is Sarah Ann. So just let me know when you would like me to have them speak, because I can just give them permission to speak.
Okay, I'll just go through these next few slides. I won't ask people to put the answers in the chat. I'll just go over them so we can speed things up. So questions to ask an interviewer. What will my day-to-day responsibilities like? What are your expectations of me? These are important because you want to make sure that the interviewer knows you're ready to do the job and do whatever is expected of them, and that the consumers are going to be prepared for that. And then, how would you describe somebody that succeeds in this role? So that will impress the interviewer too, because you want to ask them pretty much also what's going to be expected of you and how you can be successful and get up to that same success. And what is your favorite part of your position? That's also important because you can also gauge the culture kind of the place and how things are run at the company. Because an interviewer is a two-way street. It's for an interviewer to get to know you and for you to get to know the company you're going to be working at. And what is the most important thing I can accomplish in the first 90 days? Next slide. Questions not to ask. Tell me about your company. When do I get time off? Again, it shows that they haven't done their research on the company, which they're supposed to do ahead of time. And it also says that they just care about the benefits they're going to get. They're not caring about contributing to the company. And did I get the job? Questions that approach multiple topics at once because you don't want to throw the interviewer off. And you don't want to ask too much personal information about the interviewer. Next slide. end of the interview. When you want to have them ask, when can I follow up, so they can maintain that connection? Because a lot of people don't follow up after interviews. They just kind of expect the employer to take it from there. And that is not how it should go if you are really interested in the job. And you want to thank the interviewers for their time, each one of them. Ask for their business cards. And immediately jot down any notes and email the interviewers thank you notes as soon as you get home. And mail in a handwritten note or a typed note if not able to handwrite well because of a disability. And that can pretty much be the same words verbatim in an email. Next slide. So conclusion, I heard this from a recruiter I was working with. The resume is what gets you an interview, and the interview is what gets you the job. Okay, next slide. Any questions? So you can go ahead and say the questions now.
Okay, and we have Lydia. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. And you should be able to unmute yourself now, Lydia, if you still had a question. And just let you know, if you are on the phone, you have to do the star 6. But I think you're in on the computer. Oh,
I was just having issues hearing in the beginning, but I did have a question. I saw the one about the question about do you have a disability on the list, and I noticed she didn't cover that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But yeah, that is one of the illegal, that's an illegal question.
It is.
And how you kind of want to do that is you kind of want to answer that, you know, I would like to get back to this other point in the conversation we were having about all of this. I mean, you don't want to say, oh, it's illegal, you can't ask that, but you say, I'd rather talk about more of this stuff and explain more of my experience and skills related to this position. Does that answer your question?
And sorry, she can't talk anymore. Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay.
And then we have one other person who's raised their hand.
Okay, Trampese.
Yes, hi. I am a person with a significant visual disability.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of piggybacking off your last question, I actually address it instantly. And I think depending on the disability, sometimes that is an appropriate approach, especially if it's setting up the interview. Sometimes they might not have the most accessible rooms that they always host their interviews in. So especially when I work with individuals that may use a chair or have other physically inhibiting disabilities, I let them know, hey, it is completely up to you as to how and when you want to disclose that. But many times it is important to disclose that, especially if they want you to fill out paperwork maybe that day or something, and you need certain assistive technologies or something to make sure that you can let them know that.
Right. So I usually tell everybody, if you're going to even need an accommodation to get in because a lot of it goes back to discrimination as well. You don't want to, you're worried if you disclose too early, you might just get discriminated against or something like that. But I think it is important, like if you're even going to need an accommodation, like a wheelchair ramp to get an interview, that if that company doesn't have that, you don't want to work there pretty much, because how are you going to be able to get into the office every day for your job? And if they are having you fill out paperwork and you are going to need some assistance with that, you want to be sure you have that so you can have that assistance there in order to do the paperwork well.
Katrina, this is Arius. We have to wrap, but we do have a few more questions. Please make sure to fill out the evaluation form. If we don't get to your question, you can we can get Katrina to put her email up in the chat so you guys can email her directly. I apologize, but it's 1 minute past the hour. Thank you all. Did you want to drop your email in the chat,
Yes,
Katrina? Or
will
okay.
do.
Thank you guys for coming. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you, Katrina, so much.
You're welcome. Thank you guys all for coming.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. I will see you guys later. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone. I'll leave the screen up for just 2 minutes in case anyone needs that contact information, and then I'll end the meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Just giving it to 10:03.
I got you. I'm still here with you.
Okay, we just hit 10:03, so I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a great day.
You're welcome. You too. Thank you.